If you're a pickleball instructor, or even if you just sort of helped some people play pickleball one day, you may have noticed before that your players don't always play the way they practice. So here's an example. I've seen lessons where the coach goes out with all these players, they do a clinic or something like that, and they work on third shot drops. They work on these third shot drops to death. The players are playing drop after drop after drop. They're hitting them out of their hand. Their partner is sending them to them. They're practicing them. They're hitting down the line drops. They're hitting cross court drops. They're hitting drops with spin. They're hitting drops that are flat. They are dropping like there's no tomorrow. Drop, drop, drop. It's very clear. Anyone walking by knows that's what this topic is for this lesson. They're working on the third shot drop. And of course, you can hear that. The coach at the beginning is talking about how important the third shot drop is if you want to advance to the next level. How the only difference between good players and really good players is the really good players can make those drops on a consistent basis, or whatever it is. Everyone there seems to be on the same page, like, hey, we are working on our drops today. And then those very same players, the next day, when they go out to their local community center or their local courts, or they're in a tournament, whatever it is, and you go out and you see drop after drop after drop after drop after drop like they just worked on? No, you don't. Now you see them hitting those third shot drives. Now you see them hitting third shot lobs. Do you see a drop once in a while? Sure, of course you do. But they do not really drop the ball. They are not playing the way that they practice. And that can be incredibly frustrating if you're a coach, having invested so much time and energy into trying to get them to understand the drop and to use the drop, and they've worked on it, and now they're not doing it in their game. So what is going on here, and what can you do about it? So the first thing we should understand is, why are they doing this? Why are they not working on this thing you just spent all this time working on? Well, I think that there's a couple reasons that we should consider. The first is they didn't buy in. They didn't buy into the idea that what they're learning is important. That example I gave before with the drops, the coach who's working on with the drops, this coach didn't really explain to the players why a drop is important. Sure, they said if you want to get to the next level, you've got to be able to hit a drop, and the better players can make those drops more consistently, but there's a really important point here that's missing. Why? Why should we care? Why should we play a drop? What is it that makes a drop valuable? And if you don't include that, if you don't have the why, then it's really hard to get the players to buy in. Because otherwise what they're just doing is they're being good, obedient students. Yes, coach, let's work on the drop. We'll work on the drop. You must know more than we do. You're the one with the name tag. We are going to play those drops because you told us to. You told us it's important, even if you didn't tell us why it's important. We are just going to do it. And what happens is, if you don't get buy-in, if you don't get the players to understand why what they're doing matters, then really what they're doing is they're just going through the motions while they have to, while the coach is watching them. Because as soon as the coach isn't watching them, or the coach isn't there, or they're in a tournament or something they care about winning, all of a sudden that's going to go out the door. They don't need to be obedient anymore. They don't need to follow whatever little rule was made up during the pretend game, that you always have to play a third shot drop, right? Those conditions are over. And if they don't get the buy-in, if they don't have the understanding, if they don't see the value of whatever skill it is you're talking about, in this case a drop, then they're not going to do it. Then they're not going to do it. Then they're not going to do it. There's a second thing to consider here, and sometimes they do buy in. Sometimes the coach does an amazing job of explaining why a drop is important. Hey, your opponents are at the net and they are scary. They are looking to pounce on anything that's high. If you give them the high ball, they are going to smack it and your life is going to be miserable. So you know what? You better give them a low ball that forces an upward hit, because if they've got to hit up, they can't really hit that hard and still keep the ball in play. And so that's why we call a drop a neutralizing shot, not because it wins you the point, but because it neutralizes your opponent's ability to do damage. This is really your way to avoid trouble if you can play a good drop that forces an upward hit. Sometimes the coaches do that. Sometimes they make a great case for why the drop matters, and the players buy in. And if you ask them why they should drop, they give you that exact answer. And then the next day, when they're out playing with their friends, when they're out playing in the tournament, they still don't do it. In this case, it's not because they don't buy in. It's not because they don't get it. But it's because they don't have confidence in it. Look, drops are really difficult shots to hit, and we're using drops as an example right now. Drops are really difficult shots to hit, and if I don't hit it perfectly, I lose, right? It's in the net and I lose, or it's too high and my opponents smack it. And if I'm playing in a match that I care about winning, either because it's a tournament match or there's money on the line, or I'm playing with my partner as my crush and I don't want to disappoint them, well, in that case, I might not be willing to take the risk of playing this drop because I don't yet have confidence that I can do it on a consistent basis. I think I'm going to fall apart. I think I'm going to miss more often than I make it. I think I'm going to embarrass myself and I'm going to look bad. My crush isn't going to like me. I'm going to lose the money. So you know what, coach? I buy in. I get it. I want to get better at this. I'm going to work on it. But you know what? Right now, I can't take the risk of trying this new thing. So it's really important that you as the coach or the instructor or the introducer, whatever it is, one is that you make sure that you get that buy-in, that you spend the time, that you invest the effort in explaining why what you're teaching your players matters. And two is if you do have that buy-in and they're still not doing it, be supportive of it. Be compassionate. Understand that they're doing this not because they're trying to be disrespectful or because they didn't buy in or whatever, but because they're scared to try to do this new thing because they don't yet have the confidence to do it. And maybe you can sort of create conditions where they have more confidence or they don't worry so much about the outcome, or maybe you just need to put in more time practicing, more quality reps getting better at it. Okay? But if your players aren't doing what they're doing in practice in a game, first look at yourself and consider whether or not you explained the why adequately. And then second, try to be compassionate and realize that there's a certain fear element here that might be holding them back.